The objective of this lab is to connect the ESP32 microcontroller to the AWS cloud. The challenge is that we have two unknowns to deal with. When a problem arises, the fault could be on either side. The ESP32 program could be buggy, or we might have misconfigured the cloud device, thus complicating the debugging process. Our approach is to divide and conquer. This lab is divided into three parts. In part 1, we will build a basic IoT device in the cloud and then connect it via a MQTT client software called MQTT.fx. Since this tool is a stable software, we need only to focus on configuring the cloud device. In part 2, we will enhance the IoT device so that it can store messages to a database and also handles the MQTT subscribe function. In part 3, when we are comfortable with the behavior of the IoT device, we can then work on a sketch for the ESP32. Now NP blocks all the MQTT ports 1883 and 8883. You will need to use your own mobile data plan if you're working on campus. This is an overview of what we are going to do in part 1 of this lab. First, we are going to create a policy. Then we will create the IoT device. Next, we will attach the policy to the IoT device. Then we will do the testing. A policy determines what the IoT device is allowed or not allowed to do. For example, who can connect to it, and specify the topics it has permission to publish and subscribe to. When creating the policy, your AWS account ID and regional code information is required. It is good to have them handy. Open a text editor. Log into AWS. We are going to use the IoT service. First, we will look for the account ID. This is my account ID. I'll copy it and paste it to the text editor. Next, I need to find the regional code. Click on the city. In this case, mine is Singapore. And the regional code is AP-Southeast-1. Now we are ready to create a policy for our device. At the IoT console, choose Secure Policy, then create. Name the policy. Together with this document, you should find a text file called policy template.txt. Client 1 is the client ID of the MQTT client. We will need this information during the testing phase. This IoT device can publish on the ESP32 pubs topic. It subscribes to the ESP subtopic. The IoT receive permission is checked every time a message is delivered to a client. Because this permission is checked on every delivery, it can be used to revoke permissions to clients that are currently subscribed to a topic. Now we need to edit this template, right? We'll replace all the region with our region. So our region is okay. Next, we want to replace all the account ID, right? And we want to replace it with our account ID. Right. So we'll paste this to our policy. Right. Click Advanced. Here we'll replace all of them with our code. And then we'll click Create. So this is the policy that we have created. Now we are ready to create the IoT device. At the console, click Manage, Things. We'll create a thing. Create a single thing. Give it a name. We'll call it broker 1. Leave the rest as default and click Next. Create certificate. Now we will activate the certificate. We will need to download this certificate for thing, which describe this thing. The next one is the private key. The private key works with the public key, which is stored in AWS, to create a symmetrical encryption key that will be used to encrypt their communication. Next, we will download the root CA. CA is the certificate authority. Right. We'll use this. Then you copy this information. Now I'm going to use this as my working directory. So I'll create a file. And I'll call it root CA. Right. So I'll paste this information over here, save it. Okay, let's go back to. So now we can attach the policy. Right. The policy that we created is policy 1. So register thing. Right. So now we have this broker 1. Right. Check that the certificate is activated. Right. So this is the certificate that we have created, 5B plus, right? 5B blah blah blah. Right. So it is active. So we have created our policy And then we have created our device, and then we have attached the policy to the device. Now we are ready to test it, right? We're going to use a well-known and stable MQTT client called mqtt.fx to test our IoT device. So you need to download and install this software, right? You can go to this website. Right, so you can download and install this software. Since I have it already, so I'll just invoke it. So we need to create the connection. We need to create a profile first, right? Okay, this is my old one. Let's create a new profile, right? You click the plus sign here and give it a name, right? So I'll just call it profile 1. We're going to use MQTT protocol, and this is the broker address. So we need to find out where is our MQTT. Okay. So you go to the thing, right? Broker 1, and you go to the interact, right? This is the endpoint, right? So we copy this, right? So we are going to communicate with this endpoint using HTTPS. So we'll paste it here. We are going to use HTTPS, so the port is 8883, right? Then the client ID, remember the client ID is called client 1, right? Remember our here, client 1, right? So you must use client 1 here. Right. So we want to use HTTPS, right? So you need this. So we want to enable this TLS, and we are going to use self-signed certificates. So CA is the certificate authority. Remember the root CA, right? The root CA here, right? So we need to tell our client where this file is located, right? So I'm going to copy the path and paste it over. Next is the client certificate. That is the certificate for the thing, right? So, so just now I have downloaded it into this, right? Remember it's all 5B something, right? So these two files here, right? So I'll shift it over to here, right? So this is the certificate, right? So I'll paste it over here. And then the client key, this is the private key, right? So you can see here, private key, do the same. Right? So all of them follow the PEM format, right? PEM. So you check this and you say, final check, okay. Right? So we are using profile 1 and we will try to connect to our, okay, that means it's a success, right? We have successfully connected to our AWS cloud. Right? You can check this, right? So Now, if you try to, let's say, if I disconnect it, right, and I go back to my setting. Now, this client 1, if you change it to something else, okay, let's change it to client 5, right? And you say, okay. Now, when you try to connect it, see, it failed, right? So it's very important that you name it correctly, right? So this is client 1, right? So when you connect it, right, it's a success, right? So make sure you can successfully connect to the broker thing before you proceed to part 2 of this lab.